Okay.
In the last 50 years, I think this first war is not included in Islamic countries. How the Muslim can take advantage of that, I don't know, if my question appropriate or not, but
give me a second here. I'm trying. Okay, good. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. I don't know where to start. Taking advantage of any opportunity requires that people or a nation are in the right position at the right time. I don't think Muslims are in any position to take advantage of anything because we are largely lost, تيه تقريبا in a situation of تيه, meaning that we don't have any direction, we don't have any position, we don't have any vision, and therefore no matter what happens in the world, only those who are prepared, those who are in the right position, on the right track, will take advantage of it. I mean, on paper, what happens, like what is happening now, what happens between especially superpowers and advanced nations creates an opportunity because basically they are busy. And when people are busy and when there is some, it's not like we want this thing to happen or we wish the last people to want any war to happen or any casualties. But when these things happen, gets those superpowers to be busy with each other and busy with themselves and busy. It's like the COVID. Yeah, COVID also created, even though it is a disaster, but created an opportunity. But opportunities comes only for those who are seeking it and those who are moving in the right direction and positioning themselves to take advantage of it. That's not the case for Muslims. We are nowhere close to even predict or see this, expect this to happen or plan for it. And we are nowhere close to understand it, and we are nowhere close to deal with it efficiently. So in this world, in the best case scenario, we are spectators. And in the worst case scenario, we are irrelevant. We are not a factory. So it's sad because a number of things, even before this last war, a number of things have changed in the world that created an opportunity. I mean, the world, when you have multiple powers rather than one superpower, that creates an opportunity, creates a big opportunity, and some nations took advantage of it because you can maneuver. You creates a margin for you to maneuver, and some countries played it right and knew how to do that and took advantage of it because in the world nowadays, there is United States, there is China, there is Russia, there is Korea, there is European Union, there are some South American countries very powerful. So there is a lot of room now to maneuver if you had an agenda. If any country has an agenda and has a national project, and I mean, the current situation is much better than when the world was ruled or dominated by one superpower. So, but again, I mean, even though, by the way, what happened is really very, I don't know how any Muslim can justify, I mean, the same act, you condemn it here and you justify it there. I mean, for a country, for an army to go and invade another country cannot be justified under any circumstances. And Muslims should have only one standard. It's not fitting for Muslims to have double standards. At the same act, you condemn it here, it's wrong, but then you applaud it there. That make no sense. This is only people who really don't have self-esteem and don't respect themselves do this. I mean, you should be someone who has principle, and your principle guide you to take consistent stands, and regardless of who is the aggressor and who is the victim. So, but again, it's not easy to come from irrelevance. And we went back to the situation before Islam. Before Islam, the Arabs were irrelevant in this world. And then there is this mission came and created from them a movement that has become very relevant and very impactful, and actually was able to change the world and the course of history in the span of one generation. But then our position in the world as Muslims has always been closely related to how seriously we take that mission and how sincere and dedicated we are in advancing the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we become loose in our commitment, we relapse, we go back to become irrelevant again. And so nowadays nobody is trying to look at what Muslims have to say about this, because again, even though we're really large in numbers and resources, but we are very, unfortunately, very irrelevant. I mean, if you think about opportunities, there are some Muslim countries that have got so much wealth. That's even much bigger opportunity than anything that can happen. But what did they do with it? I mean, to what extent that wealth was leveraged in. It's a sad story. It's never hopeless, but things will not change by themselves. There is a golden rule in Islam that conditions of people will not change until the people themselves change. And if we're still thinking the same way and doing business the same way and acting the same way, we're going to get the same results. I mean, Einstein said that there is only one thing that he did not understand, is how come someone does the same thing over and over again, the same way, and expect different results. And he called that insanity. Insanity is to do the same thing the same way over and over again and to expect different results. And that's what we have been doing for quite some time now. And we always have something somewhere in the back of our mind that things somehow they will work out. Somehow Allah will make it happen. Somehow, it's which is called wishful thinking. Yeah. Wishful thinking. There is a very fine line between having an inspiring dream that you work hard to turn it into reality, and between having wishful thinking or daydreams. You just wish that something is going to happen, or you expect, but you're not paying the price for it, and you're not doing what you are supposed to do. So war or no war or opportunities always come in this world. By the way, they come to individuals, they come to communities, they come to societies, countries. Opportunities always are there, but only for those who are on the right track and in the right position and seeking and looking for those opportunities, because they can save you a lot of time and they can allow you to accelerate the pace and move faster towards your goals if you have goals. But if you are sitting idle, all the opportunities in the world may come and you don't take advantage of them.
جزاك الله كل خير دكتور سهيل.
Inshallah. If there are no more questions, we can go back and resume. Again, this Quran is so amazing that no matter how much you know it, you memorize it. Every now and then, you find yourself as if you are reading it for the first time. It's amazing. Amazing how much guidance is in this book, how much inspiration, how much empowerment, and to what extent we are really missing, and how much we are missing by not embarking on lifelong journey of studying this Quran and extracting guidance and lessons from it. So we had last time the verses from the main theme was Mithaq, and Quran has its way to emphasize things. So the theme is Mithaq. Mithaq is covenant. People have a covenant with Allah that was taken from Adam alayhi salam, and applies to everybody. And then it was repeated with different nations. And then, of course, some nations have honored those covenants and some didn't. So the verses that start from verse 12, Mithaqa Bani Israel. First was with the Bani Israel, children of Israel. And then what happened, and then the followers of Jesus, of course, the message is for Muslims is not to do the same, that you have also a covenant with Allah and you should not do the same thing. And then, of course, came the appeal for the people of the book. يا أهل الكتاب قد جاءكم رسولنا يبين لكم كثيرا مما كنتم تخفون من الكتاب ويعفو عن كثير قد جاءكم من الله نور وكتاب مبين. Appeal to be the first to accept this message, because it basically confirms what you have, and you should be the first ones to support it, not the first one to fight it. يهدي به الله من اتبع رضوانه سبل السلام ويخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور بإذنه ويهديهم من الصراط المستقيم. I really recommend that this verse 16, that you reflect on it and you memorize it, and it's an amazing verse that Allah guides with His revelation those who are seeking His pleasure. يهدي به الله من اتبع رضوانه. Guides them where? Guides them to the ways of peace, subul as-salam, peace and tranquility and happiness, and then يخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور بإذنه. Then ويهديهم إلى صراط مستقيم. A light has now come to you from Allah and the scripture, making things clear, with which Allah guides those who follow what pleases Him to the ways of peace, bringing them from darkness out into light by His will, and guiding them to a straight path. And then we had those very strong messages of Tawheed Again, the message was the message of Tawheed. The platform was Isa alayhi salam and Maryam. لقد كفر الذين قالوا إن الله هو المسيح ابن مريم قل فمن يملك من الله شيئا إن أراد أن يهلك المسيح ابن مريم وأمه ومن في الأرض جميعا. يعني people are really hopeless before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who can say or do anything if Allah wills to do that. Allah, and then وَلِلَّهِ مُلْكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا. Everything belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything in earth and in heaven. Could anyone have prevented him from destroying the Messiah, son of Mary, together with his mother and everyone else on earth? Control of the heavens and earth and all that is between them belongs to Allah. Very powerful. يَخْلُقُ مَا يَشَاءُ. He creates whatever he will. And that should not be a source of confusion, that if he created Jesus that way, he creates whatever he will and has power over everything. So control of everything, power of everything, creates whatever he will. Very strong, one of the strongest verses of Tawheed. Then come the fact that this is also the messages for us that this idea of chosen people. قالت اليهود والنصارى نحن أبناء الله وأحباؤه قل فلما يعذبكم بذنوبكم بل أنتم بشر ممن خلق. And bringing things back to the fundamental. You are just people, you are accountable for what you do. The Jews and Christians say we are the children of God and his beloved ones. The message is for Muslims not to say the same thing, not to do that. And unfortunately, we are doing it. Say that, then why does he punish you for your sins? So in other words, that it's a different way to say you are, no, that's not true. You are accountable. And there is no special privilege. You are merely human beings, part of his creation. بشر ممن خلق. And then comes, he forgives whoever he will and punishes whoever he will. Again, control of the heavens and earth and all that is between them belongs to him. All journeys lead to him. This time, وَإِلَيْهِ الْمَصِيرُ. And then confirming all of this is review. We covered this last time. And then يا أهل الكتاب قد جاءكم رسولنا يبين لكم على فترة من الرسل أن تقولوا ما جاءنا من بشير ولا نذير فقد جاءكم بشير ونذير والله على كل شيء قدير. People of the book, our messenger comes to you now after a break in the sequence of messengers to make things clear for you, in case you should say no one has come to give us good news or to warn us. So someone has come to you to give you good news and warn you. Allah has the power to do all things. Allahu ala kulli shay'in qadir. So very strong verses, sequence of verses of Tawheed, and then concluding this, that saying that there is no excuse claiming to be the chosen people or the children of God and his beloved ones. It's not going to do anything. Excuse that you say maybe that you didn't have it, you didn't receive a messenger. No messenger came to you after a break, so you have no excuse. You can see how Quran was very persistent in trying to get the people of the book to accept and follow this religion. I mean, and that's a lesson for us, is not to easily give up. A lot of time we easily give up on something or on someone, and that's not appropriate. Tomorrow, I believe, is Isra and Mi'raj. Isra and the Mi'raj, the journey that Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala granted to Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, was really happened in a very tough year for Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I mean, year he lost all the support he got, his wife, his uncle, and the year he suffered the most of harassment and all kinds of insult and attacks. And then even when he tried to go to Taif, a city near Mecca, hoping that he might get a better response, he was also humiliated and even stoned. And during that year, for the whole year, nobody responded to his call, to his message. But that did not deter him. He was day in, day out, going out and talking to anybody who is willing to listen. That's persistence, and that's not easy. It's not. The other way is very easy, that you say a couple of words to someone and say, that's it, these people are hopeless. Nothing good is going to come out of them, so there is no point. That's not the proper way if we want to really follow the way of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Is persistence, dedication, sincerity, and then it gets rewarded. It pays off. But after you need to be persistent and patient and steadfast. And subhanAllah, when Allah allows things to happen, you never know how it happened. Now, the Jews of Medina were telling the people of Medina that this is the time where there is a prophet who's expected. And of course, he's going to come from us as usual, even though they more than likely knew that's not the case, but anyway. And then when he comes, we're going to fight you, etc. So they were really and consciously or not deliberately promoting or preparing those people of Medina to accept the message. So when these 6 individuals were in Hajj, in pilgrimage, and the Prophet ﷺ, as usual, he takes advantage of that season and keep going around and talking to anybody who's willing to listen. And he asked those people, do you have a minute? And they said yes. And he started talking to them. They immediately remembered, so this is probably the prophet that the Jews have been telling us about him. So let us be the first to accept his message. So something that was meant to actually it's backfired, has backfired. Something was meant for the opposite reason, ended up helping those people to accept, and those 6 average people were the seeds that resulted in everything else that we know. You can see how you spend the whole year, nobody answers you, and then 6 average people, they were not really leaders of of Medina or influential people, but that small incident created that great success story, or helped making that very tough journey in Mecca to turn into a really great success story. And then Quran tells us again, the focus on stories in Quran is for lessons. لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ عِبْرَةٌ. In their stories, there are lessons. So keep in mind when you read the Quran, and it is about 1/3 of the Quran is about stories. When you read those stories, don't forget that Quran, there is a text and there is a message. There is a text or context, and there is a message. So stories in general and the story of Bani Israel in particular. This particular story, or actually all stories, are meant to tell Muslims that you should not commit the same mistake. I'm going to tell you about people before you whom we took their covenant and they did not honor it. That's what happened. And this is one of those stories, is the story of Musa alayhi salam. Of course, Musa had very tough times, time and again, starting from getting them out of Egypt, heading to the Holy Land, that's supposed to be. And then immediately after they were saved from Pharaoh, they saw people who are worshiping idols. They asked Musa to give them an idol like that to worship. And then Musa goes to meet Allah, and then they take the cow, the gold made out of gold, and start worshiping it. And then the story of the baqarah, the slaughtering the cow. And then, so story after, and then the man and salwa, when Allah gave them food so handy that you don't have to work for it, so that you really become fully dedicated to the cause of Allah and to the mission, to your mission. Now they said, we want the food that we used to have and the cooking and etc. So, and then this incident, which is around the Holy Land, and Musa alayhi salam, knowing his people, he started by reminding them of the bounties of Allah. So maybe that can motivate them to listen. وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ يَا قَوْمِ اذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ جَعَلَ فِيكُمْ أَنْبِيَاءَ وَجَعَلَكُمْ مُلُوكًا وَآتَاكُمْ مَا لَمْ يُؤْتِ أَحَدًا مِنَ الْعَالَمِينَ. Very good introduction to motivate people. I mean, if really they were people who listen, Moses said to his people, my people, remember Allah's blessing on you, how he raised prophets amongst you and appointed kings for you and gave you what he had not given to any other people. And that should be really enough for someone, for a reasonable, decent person to say, to be ready to accept what is coming. So reminded them of all the favors and bounties of Allah, that the continuation of it, which was not mentioned, I mean, which it's understood, the implicit continuation or conclusion, you have to be grateful and you have to be obedient to Allah and you have to do what you're supposed to do. يا قوم ادخلوا الأرض المقدسة التي كتب الله لكم ولا ترتدوا على أدباركم فتنقلبوا خاسرين. Almost expecting what is going to happen, Musa alayhi salam say, my people, go into the Holy Land, which Allah has ordained for you. Do not turn back or you will be the losers. And that's exactly what happened. And there is a big lesson that we're going to learn here, is the response of the people of Musa, that majority of Muslims today have the same mindset, the same idea, even if they don't say it. قالوا يا موسى إن فيها قوما جبارين وإنا لن ندخلها حتى يخرجوا منها فإن يخرجوا منها فإنا داخلون. It's really, again, this is the context, but the idea is for people to want to have to achieve things without paying the price. That takes us back to the daydreaming or to the wishful thinking. They said, Moses, we will never enter. They said, Moses, there is a fearsome people in this land. There's a heavy price and we don't want the price. I want to get to the land, but take those people out and we will go in. There is a fearsome people in this land. We will not go there until they leave. If they leave, then we will enter. So what's the point here? What's the merit? This is the story, but what's the message? The message is for everybody, including Muslims, to forget about achieving anything personal or at any level without paying the price for it. So finding those shortcuts, trying to gain things without the efforts, without the sacrifices, without that, forget about it. And believe it or not, I don't exaggerate if I say majority of Muslims are thinking this way. Majority of young Muslims, especially in Muslim countries, are thinking this way, waiting for things to happen, wishing for things to happen, want to have easy money, easy gain, easy achievement. Even in study, they cheat all the time. And I've been teaching for so long. The only time I had flagrant case of cheating involved some Muslims. And it was really so sophisticated. I mean, people using those Apple watches. And I mean, the plan, if the time they put to put that plan together, put it in studying, they probably would have done a good job without having to cheat. And subhanAllah, on the same day, I was teaching another class and I was giving a test. And I had TAs, teaching assistant with me. So I sent them the test. There are 2 students who come early. So the TA gave them the test, but when she forgot, she gave them the answer key also. So the 2 students by themselves in the room, as soon as they saw the answer key, they raised their hands to ask the TA to come and take the test and remove the answer key and bring the test back. So the cheating case was in the morning. This was in the afternoon. Anyway, so this idea has really to be, somebody is, I don't know whether their government was paying for them or their parents, but that requires a lot of money to be paid for you to come to the United States and to pay for your tuition and for your living, etc. And then rather than taking advantage to learn, take advantage of this is the most advanced nations in science, you bring those tricks and cheating with you. So anyway, so this idea, إِنَّ لَن نَدْخُلَهَا حَتَّى يَخْرُجُوا مِنْهَا إِنَّ فِيهَا قَوْمًا جَبَّارِينَ. You call people to strive for freedom. They say, no, the regime is very oppressive and very, very brutal, etc. So let's just go and just, be submissive and accept. You tell people to change conditions, or you call people for change, they respond always with excuses. Just keep the status quo. And they're very comfortable with stagnation and very comfortable with whatever kind of life they're living, even though very few countries in the world now remained in that situation, remained in that backwardness across the board. And why? Because we are still thinking this way. We want change, but we don't want to pay the price for it. We want it to happen by itself. We want some leader to come from the moon and take us where we want to go. We want to sleep at night and wake up in the morning and find things have changed. So unfortunately, as silly as this mindset seems to be, majority of Muslims nowadays, even if they don't say it implicitly, they are thinking that way. I'm sure probably many of you are aware of the rate of unemployment in many Muslim countries. And these people are still waiting in coffee shops, wasting all the time, waiting for the government to employ them. That's the same thing. It's the same idea. I studied, I got my degree. Only Allah knows how they got it, with this kind of cheating and memorize a couple of things or solve typical problems and then forget about forget about the course once you are done. And as I got the degree, the government I need the government job. And it doesn't come 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, go do something. No. And then subhanAllah, Quran contrasts this with the other mindset that Muslims should adopt. قال رجلان من الذين يخافون أنعم الله عليهم ادخلوا عليهم الباب فإذا دخلتموه فإنكم غالبون وعلى الله فتوكلوا إن كنتم مؤمنين. So إن فيها قوما جبارين وإن لن ندخلها حتى يخرجوا منها. Contrast: ادخلوا عليهم الباب فإذا دخلتموه فإنكم غالبون وعلى الله فتوكلوا إن كنتم مؤمنين. Yet 2 men whom Allah had blessed among those who were afraid said, go into them through the gate, and when you go in, you will overcome them. If you are true believers, put your trust in Allah. I mean, Allah is telling you to do this. You have to trust that Allah will not let you down. You are, first of all, you are supposed to do what Allah is telling you, regardless. But on top of that, you have to believe that if Allah tells you to do something, He will be on your side. إن تنصروا الله ينصركم ولا ينصرن الله من ينصره. So ادخلوا عليهم الباب is the mindset that start something, try something. You will miss all the shots that you don't take, rather than waiting and wishing for things. I mentioned a number of times, I said that Muslims, they are probably the most politicized people in the world. When it comes to how much time, on the average, Muslims spend on watching news and following the news and talking about politics. Yes, yet they do nothing. Why? Because they're thinking the same mindset. That no, things are, the moment you turn the discussion into let's do something about it, or into action, or into taking charge or responsibility, people don't like it. Why? Because people like to talk, just talk and vent out, and that makes you feel good. People can spend hours talking about every Muslim country, every crisis, and again, they do nothing about it. Why? Because of that mindset, which is we are no longer people who are goal-oriented, people who are achievers, people who have the resolve, they have the guts to dream, and they have the resolve and determination to turn their dreams into reality. That's what we lost big time with a lot of things, other things that we lost. So ادخل عليهم الباب فإذا دخلتموه فإنكم غالبون وعلى الله فتوكلوا إن كنتم مؤمنين. Of course, cowardice comes also with what do you call it? Shameless. When it reached this point, قالوا يا موسى إن لن ندخلها أبدا ما داموا فيها. Forget it. فاذهب أنت وربك فقاتلا إنا هاهنا قاعدون. And when they were when they were cornered, they said, Moses, we will never enter while they are still there. So you and your Lord go in and fight, and we will stay here. It cannot be worse, and cannot be more inappropriate to talk to a prophet and Allah this way. You forget it? You're telling us, I mean, remember that how Moses started. اذكروا نعمة الله عليكم جعل فيكم أنبياء وجعلكم ملوكا وآتاكم. يعني with all of this, they come say, no, forget it, it's not going to happen. And you know what? Go you and your Lord and fight, and we're staying here. تذهب أنت وربك فقاتل. سبحان الله. يعني the companions understood the messages of the Quran. They understood that the verses are about Bani Israel and the message is for Muslims. So when Rasul ﷺ in the Battle of Badr was consulting them and say, what do you think? Because, by the way, even Badr was not an offensive war. Even Badr, it was a battle that was started by Quraysh. It is Abu Jahl, when he came with the army from Mecca in response to the appeal of Abu Sufyan. He is the one and the leaders of Quraysh who insisted on the war. Muslims went to intercept to the caravan of Abu Sufyan, the leader of Quraysh. And this is because Muslims were stripped of everything they owned when they were in Mecca, when they migrated, all their possessions, their houses, their businesses, their savings, everything. They left Mecca with nothing. So all of this was stolen from them. But the battle itself, it is Quraysh who insisted on fighting. So Rasul started, that's it. I mean, fighting is start consulting. And some of the companions told him, we are with you. We're not going to tell you like the followers of Musa told him, اذهب أنت وربك فقاتل إننا قاعدون. I'm going to tell you, اذهب أنت وربك فقاتل إن معكم مقاتل. يعني it's people got it that Quran is not a book of stories. But Quran is telling you stories so that you can extract the message and the lesson. The story is about Bani Israel, the message is for you, and they got it. So when that came, the same opportunity or the same circumstances or the same context, they said, we're not going to tell you, as the followers of Moses told him, we're going to tell you that, go, we are with you. We are fully on board. And just imagine the poor Moses alayhi salam in this situation. Your people basically let you down, say, go for it. Go. And by the way, every person, every individual who carry a mission or a big mission of change, a lot of time will have the same feeling that is going to come to be expressed by Musa alayhi salam. قال ربي إني لا أملك إلا نفسي وأخي فافرق بيننا وبين القوم الفاسقين. I'm not forget, but let's focus on the first part, which is إني لا أملك إلا ربي إني لا أملك إلا نفسي وأخي. He said, Lord, I have authority over no one except myself and my brother. So that feeling of loneliness, you are alone. You are carrying something so heavy, much heavier than your capability, and you don't like find the support and that. So inni la amliku illa nafsi wa akhi. There is a job to be done, and when I called these people to do it, they said basically go and do it yourself. فافرق بيننا وبين القوم الفاسقين. Musa at this time, so this is really against the original message. يا قومي وإذ قال موسى لقومه يا قومي, my people. Now these are not his people. These are the people who, and keep in mind, this is not like the first incident. That's a pattern. Judge between the two of us, meaning him and his brother, and these disobedient people. And then the answer came immediately. قال فإنها محرمة عليهم 40 سنة يتيهون في الأرض فلا تأس على القوم الفاسقين. قال, Allah said, the land is forbidden to them, and for 40 years they will wander the earth aimlessly. People did not take the mission that was assigned to them, so the penalty is to be wandering on earth aimlessly, no purpose. Do not grieve over those who disobey. فلا تأس على القوم. So فافرق بيننا وبين القوم الفاسقين فلا تأس على القوم الفاسقين. Why this 40 years? This is generation. Quran at this point is saying basically to Musa alayhi salam, this generation is hopeless. These people who lived for so long under oppression, they learned cowardness, they learned hypocrisy, they learned every crooked ways. It's really another generation is needed. To carry this mission, another generation is needed. This generation is hopeless. And remember that this happened after a string of incidents in which they were given another chance and they fail, another chance and they fail, another chance and they fail. So at this point, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Musa alayhi salam basically that this population is hopeless. So they're gonna go to wander on earth, to Tayh, for 40 years, which is like one generation, and work on future generations. Maybe you will have people who will be raised in the right way, people who are raised with the self-esteem, with assertiveness, with ambition, with the resolve, with determination, and not these people who are looking for easy gains and looking for and claiming big claims, but do not live up to them. You claim that you are children of God and his beloved ones. Do what you're supposed to do. Do what he tells you to do. So I will stop at this point. The next passage starts about the Bani Adam, the story of the son of Adam, the sons of Adam. And that's also, there is so much lessons to be learned from every verse. Believe me, we can spend not only one session, we can on one verse or part of the verse of the Quran. It's so much loaded with guidance if we just take the time and read it with reflection and then go beyond the text to understand the message. The text is the story of the children of Adam. What's the message? The text is the story of Musa with his people. What's the message? So that's always should be our attitude when we are studying the Quran. So this long journey, we did not finish 1/5 of the Quran. We have about 10 pages to finish the 6 juz'a, which is 1/5, 20% of the Quran. Any questions or thoughts or comments?
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Anushi.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I have a question about Ayah 21. Sometimes Jews and Christians use it, part of it, against them. And they say, الأرض المقدسة التي كتب الله لكم. Now, how would you argue that? They say this is proof that Palestine is for us. And how would you explain that? What's the context?
I mean, the context is clear in the Quran. This is not for you because you are who you are or because you are Jews. This is because of جعل فيكم أنبياء وجعلكم ملوكا وآتاكم ما لم يؤت أحدا من العالمين ادخلوا الأرض المقدسة. I mean, Bani Israel were before Islam, before the message to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, were the people who were carrying the message and the of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who were entrusted with this. I mean, this is something that you entrust and you can take away. So it's like a mandate. There is a mandate, there is a covenant that you failed to do, to honor and to fulfill, and was taken away. And there is nothing special about you, and there is nothing special about Muslims, by the way. Because Muslims, Allah tells them that كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر. To make it clear that you are not better than others because of who you are. You can be special people if you do special work, if you do the work that is assigned. So the mandate from Bani Israel is gone. The fact that the Prophet came from the children of Ismail, alayhi salam, not Ishaq, and then the fact that was the mandate was taken from them and given to the others, that will make you lose anything, lose everything that comes with it. And the same thing applies to Muslim, by the way. Muslim, same thing. I mean, we have seen it at the time of Prophet ﷺ. Even that prophetic community, the help and support from Allah is conditional. And when these conditions were not observed, they were defeated in the Battle of Uhud. Why? Because they lost the help and support from Allah and they become on their own. That's a mistake in Uhud, not the flagrant rebellion of Bani Israel against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we're talking about mistake, and Muslims paid heavily for it. Why? Because you don't do what you're supposed to do, you lose the help and the support of Allah, and you become on your own. So any privilege that comes because of the mandate, you lose it with it. So the Holy Land was not like assigned for the Jews because they were Jews. It's not an ethnic issue. It was, and there is the verses are clear that when they failed, Allah made them wander for 4 years aimlessly in the land. فإنها محرمة عليهم. So even though this can be really very big subject, but there was no ground whatsoever for Jews who were in different countries in the world to gather and take the land of the people based on that silly idea and deception that this is a land without people for people without a land. And just to confirm this, first of all, the Zionist movement is the most secular movement, and the Zionist leader have nothing to do with religion yet. Very secular people. So that's one. And second, they contemplated the other countries. They contemplated Argentina, they contemplated Uganda, and then the reason they chose Palestine is that because they think they can use the religious argument to mobilize their average people, the average people in, so they use the combination of the abuse and the discrimination and everything that they suffered in Europe. So that's an incentive to migrate. And then they use the religious component to migrate there. I mean, everybody who reads history knows that this is really does not, it's so easy to refute. There is no ground for what happened in Palestine. And then you go and then you massacre people and you kick them out of their houses. And then you come from the middle of nowhere and live there and occupy that. And then not only that, and then continue with the settlement and all the abuse that we see. I mean, it's a balance of power, because these people have a lot of influence everywhere. But the world should not accept this. The world, I mean, the world who's crying for Ukraine now, they should know that this was much, much worse and much more obvious, bigger humanitarian problem or human or abuse of people that what happened in Palestine and what still continue to happen here. So, but again, people don't have one standard, and media has a very big role. And then if you have lobbies around the world, then you can get your way.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Hopefully everyone all right. My first part of the question is like, how many other 40 years we gonna wait until we change what we are on? And what needs to be done? the Jewish people get lost for 40 years and they were replaced with people who followed Musa, or we just had Isa alayhi salam coming in to the story. And I'm saying this because, or my second part of the question would be in Surah Ali Imran, in Ayah 37, where Zechariah goes into Maryam, and he asks her about where she gets it from, which is the food or the fruit. I always loved that story because it reflects to the area. And again, I lived in the area until I was 16 years old. And every now and then when I go and visit, although things are not the same, but just the smell of the fruits and the food and the different vegetables and fruits, it's like you don't taste the same anywhere else. And I have been in multiple countries, in too many different countries in the world, either lived or visited, and you don't have that, you don't gain that experience of the fruits and the quality of the fruits and the smell of it. So, but in that ayah, there is multiple things that I just learned recently, something, which is like, the way that the ayah goes and it ends, it's like she reminds Zechariah of a dua. And in the meantime, she ends up by saying hisab, which is more like she tells him too many things in that same ayah, which meant, like, in my mind, I thought like Zechariah was that religion person, and he is, but it never came to my mind that he stopped doing dua because he needed a child. And the purpose of that story, and why I'm mentioning this, is that I really think that it was a lesson taken from this ayah, or from what Maryam told Zechariah, that why you gave up in dua in what you wish to have, and you need to continue regardless, without thinking about how old you are, or how old your wife is, or how many years has passed that God didn't respond to your dua. And I will stop here.
No, these are two important points. Start with the second one. The dua requires sincerity and persistence, and has nothing to do with I make dua and I will wait a day or two and then probably do it again. And if it's not happening, so what's the point? That's very, very inappropriate. Dua is, by itself, is an act of worship. By itself is a recognition that you need Allah, that you are dependent on Him. So it is expression of that dependence. It is expression of that. That's why it's very highly recommended that in dua you start by praising Allah first. And of course, if you start even by Salat ala Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then you closed with it, that's also another way that can help making the dua accepted, because Allah will accept both, and then will not basically neglect whatever in between. So dua is an act of worship. That's one thing. And second is has to come out of sincerity, that, and that's what I want, but you know better what is good for me. So keep that always in mind, because Allah may not give you exactly what you want, but give you something else that is better for you, equivalent. And then with the confidence and trust that there is nothing difficult for Allah. So even in like the case of Zechariah, or any case, you just keep doing it. I mean, why? Because there is no such thing as it's too late now. No, this is not going to happen. The doctor said that this disease or illness has no cure, and there is no hope. That's not the appropriate attitude. So that's for dua. And I talked about it this last khutbah. Very powerful tool in our hands, if we know how to use it, is the dua. It's basically do it frequently, do it persistently. Allah wants you to be persistent. to make it the same dua over and over again, and always never give up, and always have that hope and trust that Allah either is going to give you what you're asking for, or Allah will give you something else, or will protect you from something that was coming your way. So if you do it right, you will never go empty-handed. Now, the first question is big question: when things are going to change. Things are not going to change by themselves. In this very competitive world, if Muslims are gonna continue business as usual, we may be going even beyond irrelevance, because now we are irrelevant, and it can even be worse. Because as nations are competing for resources and competing for influence and for etc., I mean, you will be really subordinate to others. I mean, it's not a choice between the good and the better. It's really even this bad situation can become something that you wish for, or you dream about, if things are, because we have seen it recently, almost in every country, things are getting from bad to worse. So people always say, oh, that situation 10 years ago that we were, or 5 years ago, or 2 years ago, or 20 years ago that we were complaining about, now it's a dream. The only part of the world where people put the pictures of the 60s and 70s and 80s and they feel bad about it are only in Muslim countries. This is where we were. Things were clean and we were organized and we had a better education system and we had this and that, and now that's where we are. So things are not going to be reversed by themselves. How it should be done, there is only one way to turn things around. It happened with the Prophet ﷺ, and that prophetic model, it's the model of a core group, a solid core group who commit to an inspiring and empowering vision or project or dream, and then they manage to embody it, I mean, to do what they say, and then keep calling others to join it and create a movement around that. If we're going to try anything else, we're going to keep trying forever till the day of judgment. There is only one way things have done. I mean, countries that were occupied were able to liberate their lands this way. Countries that were backward and became now advanced nation, it all happened when people rally behind a vision or a dream or a project, and they believe in it, and they are determined, they have the resolve to do whatever it takes to turn that dream into, to make that dream come true. No other way. And it may start with a small number of people, but if that's the right core group, it can duplicate and expand in no time. Of course, if it is not, then whatever problems with the small group will only become bigger when the group become bigger. We are nowhere close to that. You know, we came to here, and the only thing we did is basically building mosques and Islamic centers, and centered around them or revolve around them, which is good. Praying and fulfilling our basic needs, and we did not go beyond that. We are yet to resume the role that was assigned to us, which is this mission of the prophets, which was concluded by Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, should become the mission of each and every one of us. And that model of the Prophet building a community or a movement that carried this big mission and big vision and big dream and were able to turn it into reality, it's the same model unless you replicate it, whether Muslims, American Muslims, or Muslims anywhere in the world, unless they start doing that, it's not going to happen. This change from above never worked and never will. And we have seen it after the Arab Spring. Many regimes were toppled, so things have changed from the top, but it did not trickle down. The mindset are still the same, the behavior is still the same, the economy is the same or worse. Nothing has improved or changed. So it's a long journey, it's a rough journey, but unfortunately there is no alternative. There is no easy way. There is no shortcuts. Any other questions or thoughts?
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. If nobody has any question, we can see you next Sunday, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.